Today, we're finishing up the refreshing of our 2004 Grand Cherokee. With the final touches done and adding a little paint, we'll add up just how much we've spent to fix up this Jeep and just how much we've raised its value. It's all today here on Truck Tech.
Hey, welcome to Truck Tech. We are doing the final steps of bodywork and paint prep on our 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee that we found in not so great condition, and we're in the process of elevating that to a really good condition with the hopes that we can build enough profit margin in it to flip and make some money. So today, what we're going to be showing you is how to spot paint and blend within a panel so you don't have to paint the entire vehicle to freshen it up. And then maybe we'll build enough equity in this thing to make some cash.
Now, to get it into the paint booth, it's obviously going to need some wheels to roll on. And if you guys remember, when we first got this thing into the shop, we broke down the tire and wheel so we could do a little bit of wheel repair on one of the aluminum outer lips that was damaged by a little bit of a curb. Now, to do that, first we removed the broken section wheel and then cleaned up the damaged area, so we could replace what's missing with some aluminum filler rod using our Miller TIG welder. All we're doing is stacking up weld so it can be reshaped later. Now, to reshape it, we're using a variety of tools, basically reforming the wheel to make it look like what it did before the curb rash. Now, with the cosmetic repair taken care of, we still need to refinish the wheel. Now, this was a machine finished and clear coated wheel, and I guess we could go in and clear coat the entire wheel and it would probably be a pretty close match to the other three wheels. But we want to take this opportunity to change up the look of the vehicle a little bit. So we did a spray out of two different wheel paint options that we've got. One being more of an original equipment silver, the other being an aftermarket looking or unique graphite. And that's what we're going to go with. Now, obviously, this wheel's been media blasted, and the first thing we're going to do is a few mist coats of some Dupli-Color wheel paint. It's going to take a few passes from a few different angles to get in all the hard-to-reach areas. Now, I'm trying really hard to make sure this is done right, because my coworker's a paint and body stickler, and sometimes you never know when you're going to get a drive-by. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going, eh?
Now, the manufacturer more than likely uses powder coating as a way of coating the wheel. That's because the applied electrostatic charge draws the powder into the hard-to-reach areas in a nice, even manner, giving it a good, even coat. When you're painting, well, you've got to aim where you want the paint to land, requiring a little bit different technique. Now, once we're happy with a good, even paint job, well, we're just going to leave it alone and go with the semi-matte finish that it's going to give us. But if you want a nice, shiny, glossy finish, well, you could always cover all this in a good clear coat.
Now, we walked you through fixing the damage right here, and we've got it buried in high build primer, which is also, as you can see, black. So if we play our cards right, my body work is good enough and I don't block through it, well, it also acts as my ground coat, and once I'm prepped, I'm ready for paint. We've talked about spot painting. Now, what I'm talking about is not stopping your base coat and clear coat right here. Basically, it's spotting in the color and the color only, and using clear coat to bury everything under a blanket to where you have an invisible repair. You've got a couple of options. And the first one is you can break it off right here at the pinstripe because it's a natural break and we've got enough room underneath that to blend our color out and stop the clear. But what happens right here? Check this out. This, well, your pinstripe stops and you've got a rounded off edge here, so you're going to have a tapered, polished out, weak area here, and that's not good, and let me show you why. Take a look at this right here. This is actually sun damage, and it's because the clear coat is weak and thin. The ultraviolet rays go through the clear and actually deteriorate or oxidize the color coat under the clear, causing the clear to separate or flake off, delaminate. Now, what happens here is the same thing that's going to happen on your tapered or blended edge. For instance, there's your top coat, and when you blend your clear, it tapers down like that. So what happens here? It's weak, and it's going to do that exactly over time on that edge. It's going to become visible. It's very unprofessional. So now that we know what happens with a tapered off clear coat edge, just like that fender, it's going to end up in a guaranteed failure. The next option is to blend or at least clear coat until the next natural break in the panel, which takes you up over here, right up to the roof rack on the inside edge here, right down over here, and finally ends up at the windshield. We don't have to touch the doors, just this thin, narrow strip and this whole entire quarter panel, and we have that continuous blanket of clear coat that's never going to fail like the top of that fender did with UV exposure. And the bonus is that we get to keep our pinstripe. Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so keep up. We're going fast. The worst thing in the world is to get overspray on your weather strip, so remove that and then start scuffing. We don't need much adhesion, but we need something, so the gray pad is perfect. I'm following the gray pad with a glass cleaner that gets rid of the dust and is another round of cleaning. Protecting the glass and the pinstripe is just a way for me to get the work done faster without having to be careful and tedious around these edges. Now, it's very important to knock all of the shine off, even from the inside crevices and cracks. The bodywork gets one final blocking with 400 grit, and then a final wipe down with the glass cleaner and blown off. Masking is arduous. It takes a long time and it's kind of boring. Nevertheless, you have to focus and you have to keep in mind where the paint is going to want to go, which is everywhere. It's very important to cover up all of the jams and inside the doors as well. I use a back taping method on most of the hard edges, which allows me to have a nice soft edge after the vehicle's unmasked. Obviously, I'm not masking the driver's door, so I have a way to get in the vehicle and drive it into the booth. Once I'm done with all the glass and all the trimming, well, I use a piece of plastic designed for auto body repair to bag the rest of the vehicle while it's in the booth. Hey, this is Truck Tech, and we're doing the fun part of an auto body repair. We're in the spray booth showing you how to blend within a panel, and this is a situation where less is more and economy is key. All right, step one always is tacking your vehicle off, gets rid of the fine dust, and allows you to look and see if there's anything that you missed in the masking process. We're good. I'm starting out with a single coat of clear base coat, or a clear sealer. This evens the playing field and lets your subsequent coats of paint react exactly the same no matter where you're spraying, because after all, we're economizing on color and just putting the color around our repair spot. Remember, good safety equipment protects the panel and protects you. Clear base coat is nothing more than a combination of binders that are already in the base coat color anyway. It serves a couple of purposes: to fill scratches and give a nice bed for the paint to melt into. We're going to let this dry for about 15 or 20 minutes, dry to touch, and then we can move on. We're saving the pinstripe so it blends in and we don't have to redo it. This involves covering it up to make sure that no overspray sits on top of it. Fine line tape is perfect, and the glue isn't strong enough to pull the stripe off of the panel. It may take a little bit of adjustment, but it's worth it in the long run to save the stripe and save that cost of restriping. Watch my technique. I'm spraying and pulling it off of the repair, releasing the trigger as I move out. Look at the direction of the gun. It's pointing away from the rest of the panel because I'm trying not to get paint on anything else other than my repair and still get an effective blend. Again, the second coat after about 10 minutes dry time is applied the same way. You can see me release the trigger as I move away from the repair while still blending out the base coat. Look at the stripe, there's no paint on it. Look at the masking on the other door, there's no paint on it. This technique really works. Now I'm reducing the air pressure to get a larger droplet size, which you can see on the paper. A larger droplet size lets the metallic particles within the paint self-orient, and that means they lay down nicely and don't stand up on end and are very much invisible. Blending paint is all about creating the illusion that the repair was never made in the first place, so remember some of these techniques when it's your turn. Now, you can clear coat your base in as little as 15 minutes, but remember, you have up to 24 hours. So if you're in a home shop environment, your airflow's not great, and your temperature is a little low, remember, you've always got the opportunity to give the base coat the dry time it needs regardless of your conditions. Okay, here's a problem you're going to run into, especially on an older vehicle. We're trying to save this paint and blend it into here. We don't want to drag our base coat over here. We got rock chips. Can be a problem. Here's a way to fix it. Get a little bit of paint, a broken paint paddle or a touch-up brush, and you just daub it in. Really anything that will take on the paint and deposit it into the crater of the rock chip will work for this procedure. Dark colors blend easier, of course, but you can still get good results even with a light silver if you're careful to really confine your color into the rock chip itself. Now that way, we still get our color match. Okay, colors blended out, rock chips are fixed up. It's time to protect everything with a shiny fat layer of clear coat. I like to look at the breaks between steps as opportunities, and tacking your panels before clear coat is an opportunity to take a look and make sure that all your masking tape is still down, that the solvent hasn't lifted it up, and you've got all the trash off and you're ready for clear coats. We're using a high solids clear that's thick enough and strong enough to only need 2 coats. Notice I'm painting the masking paper as well. It's not a mistake and it's not an accident. Painting the paper will hold down any dust that might be sitting on top and potentially blow up into your clear coat. We've only got 2 shots at this at giving a perfect finish, and I want to make sure that my paint job is as dust-free as I can possibly get it. It's not one big thing that makes a clean paint job, it's a string of little details. And the details are especially important if you don't have a spray booth.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Well, with the body work done and it covered up in paint and clear coat, and this thing sitting on its freshly painted wheels, I gotta say, this thing's looking pretty good. And it's a lot better than what we started with. But before we could reassemble this thing, there was one thing we had to take care of on the interior. Now inside, the interior of this Jeep was in fair condition, just a little bit dirty, but the shifter assembly or the shift indicator was completely busted. And after a quick call to the dealership, we got a serious dose of sticker shock. They wanted over $500 for this shifter assembly, and the part we needed wasn't available separately. So we saved more than a few bucks by going to a salvage yard. We went to Davey's Jeep Parts and picked this thing up used. Now with the console out of the way, installation is pretty straightforward. The hardware holds it down to the transmission tunnel, and there's 3 cables that attach to it along with an electrical connector. The 3 cables are for the transfer case, the transmission, and the shift interlock. Now getting some of these retaining clips in and out took a little bit of a metal massaging, but no big deal. All right, now we're on to something. Last one didn't even do that. Now there's only a handful of screws holding this console in place, so installation is pretty easy. You just have to wrestle it around the shifter handles, the e-brake handle, and the seat belt receptacles. And a couple of screws hold the lid in place.
Okay, with all the work done, let's talk about money. And keep in mind that we're not factoring in our labor charge, just like you guys wouldn't at home if you're a weekend warrior, and we're not a professional shop here. We're not factoring in or attaching a cost to our labor, just what it costs to buy the materials to refurb this vehicle. And an interesting thing happened in the last couple of years in the used car market. Due to the arguably failed Cash for Clunkers program, well, it elevated and lifted the values of all these used cars. Now, it's just a simple supply and demand issue, but vehicles like our Grand Cherokee, well, now they're worth more. So Kelley Blue Book says that this vehicle is worth about $2,300 in a trade-in value. So you combine that with about $370 worth of paint materials that it took to fix it, and with about another $250 for the shifter and the parts that it took to fix the console, well, that gives us a total expenditure of about $620. Now, Kelley Blue Book, in the condition that it's in, gives it about a $5,000 value, which is between good and very good averaged out, which gives us a total profit margin of almost $2,100, way more than the couple of $100 I thought we were going to build into it. So now what do? We got some good equity built into this decent used car. Do we flip it and make the money, or do we keep it? Well, I say we do what we do here, and we take an already solid vehicle, make it a little better. Hey, welcome back to Truck Tech. Well, one of the last things we're going to do with this vehicle is one of the ones that was most obvious that it needed to be done and taken care of, is to replace this battery, which is absolutely just shot. And you throw a meter on it. Thanks, Ryan. It's 1.8 volts. This thing is toast. Since it's not an AGM battery, it can't be brought back from a deep cycle discharge. Time to replace it. Since PowerNation has a commercial account with AutoZone, and it was a simple deal for us to just give them a call, and we deliver the parts right to our door. And if you've got a small business or a repair shop, you can get signed up with AutoZone as a commercial account, get parts delivery to your door, and some great discounts.
Now, in addition to a fresh battery, we're also going with a tried and true upgrade, a cold air intake. Not terrible, but it's not new either. Now, along with getting rid of the stock air filter, we're also getting rid of the top half of the stock air box, the intake elbow, and this clunky plenum thing that sits on top of the intake manifold that attaches to the throttle body. And we're going to replace it with this much cleaner intake tube, and just leaving it loosely clamped in place for now. All right, now we've got our adapter bolted in place to the heat shield, and with that done, well, we can fit the heat shield right over top of the bottom half of the stock air box. Now, this Airaid cold air intake will help isolate hot engine air from the cooler and denser air being drawn from in behind the grille and the headlight, helping to make more power. The heat shield, or cool air dam, seals to the hood and simply snaps in place just like the stock airbox would. All right. Add the air filter. We'll be done. Now, the air filter itself is a lifetime filter. It's washable and reusable. And since the filter is not confined to a stock type airbox, you can really hear it work, especially when you rev the engine. Now, most modern Jeeps have some sort of lift gate, like our Grand Cherokee does. But if your old Jeep has a tailgate and it's in rough shape, well, RockAuto.com has a replacement for you. This tailgate is an authentic restoration part licensed by Mopar, and with its EDP, or electro deposition primer coating, it meets ISO 9001 certifications for corrosion resistance. This tailgate fits 1968 to 1986 CJs and Scramblers. So if you need body replacement parts, check out RockAuto.com.
If you're looking for ways to improve power and fuel economy in your vehicle, and let's face it, who's not these days, then you may want to look at a throttle body spacer from Airaid called PowerAid. This patented throttle body spacer is hard anodized for a long life and comes with all the necessary hardware that you need to install it. But the patented Helix bore claims to boost air velocity for improved atomization, which in turn can give you increased fuel economy and increased power. So for a simple bolt-on product with the promise of better power and fuel economy, you may want to check out a PowerAid throttle body spacer by Airaid, available wherever Airaid products are sold.
Now, if you take your Jeep off-road, you're probably familiar with the benefits of disconnecting the sway bars. It allows for more suspension travel. Well, Rusty's Off-Road has some sway bar disconnects that not only make the job easy, but fit most models of Jeeps. They feature greasable, high-strength forged ends, grade 8 and stainless steel hardware, and they offer up a lot of adjustment. They'll fit a vehicle with anywhere between 2 and 8 inches of lift, and you don't have to remove them from the vehicle to make the adjustments either. Now, hardware is included for most models, so if you change vehicles, you can swap your American-made disconnects over to your new rig. Guys, thanks for watching Truck Tech. See you soon.